You ever realize you made a mistake?
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you made that mistake twice.
Yeah.
And then the third time you start to realize, well, don't make that mistake again.
So have you made the mistake the third time yet? Dear Brother with Alex and Mark is brought to you by absolutely no one.
No.
Oh, you're on. Okay.
No, not yet.
You want to tell me what that mistake is?
Leaving and then getting convinced to stay, and then leaving and then getting convinced to stay. Mm-hmm. It's 2 for 2 on that.
Yeah, if you did really,
I don't want to. I don't want to be 3 for 3.
Do you have an offer?
No, not yet. I haven't done anything yet.
Okay.
But yeah.
Would you consider? Would you stay in the industry, or would you consider?
I don't think
changing
so.
industry?
I think that's part of the driving force. I really loathe this industry, and I don't know if I loathe it because of where I work or just because of the people, or I don't know. It's become tiresome, man.
Yeah.
And it's a constant cycle. You know how it is. It's you know, no matter what you do to try to change it, no matter what you do to try to improve it, it's always the same.
Well, I mean,
maybe it's just a place that doesn't
no.
change because it's been 20 years, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going on 20 years, and truthfully, nothing has substantially changed. There's been little changes here and there. But the same mistakes and same stupidity that I was dealing with in 2002, we're dealing with in 2020.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't tell me anything, then I need to have my head checked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've given this place sufficient chances.
You have
an opportunity to changes. It's like a bad relationship, you know. You have a spouse that cheats on you constantly. You're like, oh, I'll give her another chance. I'll give him another chance, and they keep doing it. And after a while, it's like, well, you're the idiot.
Yeah, It is the case, Alex. Now that you are the idiot.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I've been for the past couple of weeks. Hence my mood.
That's fine. I mean,
it's hard to realize you're the idiot.
It is hard to realize you're the idiot when it's happened more than once for me, but the times that I've realized that I'm the idiot, there's usually a period of displeasure, and then the result is that I do something about it and it works out to be better off. So realizing you're the idiot might suck at first, but it ultimately is a good thing to do because the consequences of it are positive.
Yeah, it's weird because I always, like, every time I've come to this realization several times, and I always somehow circle back and convince myself, it's like, well, no, you can do things better, and there's things you could do to change it. No, there isn't. There isn't. Because I've tried those things, and they don't have sufficient impact. Because the world around those things that I try to change remains stupid and ignorant.
Right. I mean,
so it's just I'm bashing my head into a wall.
Yes.
And I'm bleeding profusely. I don't want to bleed anymore.
So, yeah, when you bash your head up against the wall, you either need to figure out how to soften the wall with your head, or you need to get a stronger head, so that way you can break the stronger wall. And at some point, you can run into a situation where, like, the best helmet is still not going to hit and beat down the strongest wall. So, the in principle, philosophically speaking, of course you can make the difference. Of course you can change it. Of course you have the capability, the intelligence, the know-how. But at the same time, how much energy are you willing to spend on it?
And that's the thing. I've run out of the will to want to do it.
Yeah.
I've just, I've thought, you think about your career and what you do on a daily basis, and it's just like I've run out of fucks to give, for lack of a better term.
I'll
Right
tell
now,
you.
it's just become it's going through the motions now. Now it's just my job, do my thing, do what needs to get done, so that no one bothers me, and then go home.
Yeah, that's no
And
fun.
yeah, and look, I'm not saying work's supposed to be fun, happy place, and blah blah blah. It's work.
Well,
That's why it's called work. But still,
but
you should enjoy some sort of aspect of it.
it should be. It should at least be stimulating. It should at least be to the point where you're not upset at it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if not more than that, but at the very minimum, you should not be angry and upset about it, because it is a foundation of our lives. It's a thing that we do in order to provide for ourselves and for families, and so you need to do it.
Yeah, I'm not even angry or upset. It's more disappointment.
Yeah. Well, so I came to a realization quite recently, actually. That's pretty much on the opposite side of the spectrum of what you're talking about, but it's related. It was that for all my complaining and all of my displeasure and anger over the years in the industry that you and I are a part of, I realized that it is actually quite a economic downturn proof industry, or at least extremely resilient compared to a lot of others. And of all of the things that I could have ever found myself doing, I can't really think of another one that is as resilient as this one, in a weird twist.
Yeah.
And as much as the people that we serve bother me in one way or another, I realize that they have been paying my salary for the better part of 20 years reliably through multiple problems. So to that end, I have remained sort of optimistic about it. And what I can tell you from my personal experience is that, at the risk of making this all about leaving New York or not, it is different here than it ever was in New York for me. The people are different. The jobs are different. There's a lot of similarities, but there are significant differences in the way that it operates and the types of jobs that we do, such that it is a much more reasonable place. Even at the most unreasonable time here in Colorado, it was more reasonable than it ever was in New York.
How so?
I guess the first way to put it would be that everybody is more laid back about their operation. So the rich people who want the thing right away are more laid back and therefore reasonable about timelines and expectations. The companies themselves are operated by people who are more laid back and reasonable about timelines and expectations. And just that simple combination of things makes it so that way it is not as stressful in an environment. And for the most part, it's just as innovative and interesting and neat as it could be, just without a lot of the issues. Now, that being said, there are a lot of companies owned by people who are knuckleheads, who are doing it wrong, who are pains in the asses, who whatever. But there's enough others that are doing fine and are reasonable. So translate that to any place in the country, and I would venture a guess that even in New York, even in the heart of the ignorance, as it were, another company could be a better place than the one you're at now. And the only way to know that is to try, for sure.
Yeah, it's weird because I mean, the players here,
Yeah.
Look, honestly, it's for me, it's less about the outside influences, right? Like, contractors, clients, whatever. Yeah, they're different in different parts of the country, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be more or less the same. You have stupid, unreasonable deadlines that no one really ever meets, and it's always a mad dash at the end because whatever, the electrician stinks, the plumber stinks, someone stinks, doesn't do their job, blah, 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 blah. That's the stress the external stresses are not what motivates me to want to leave, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, that's going to happen anywhere you go. maybe in different levels, but it's always going to be there. There's no utopia. There's no perfect job that goes, oh, the contractor says we're going to be done by December 24th. And guess what? Hey, December 24th, everyone's wrapped up, put a bow in the house. Welcome to your new home. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the real world. It happens on TV. It's more about the internal stuff. It's just you remember the place. And I don't know if when you were there, but like, it's like a negative vibe, man.
Oh yeah, no, it was always that way.
Yeah, and it's gotten worse.
Well, I mean, you gotta think about how the place operates, and so there has always been this element of the people. Like, okay, so here's a really ridiculous analogy, but I'm going to go with it. Imagine like a chocolate, like a truffle, like filled with some delicious center, but instead of it being like coated in delicious chocolate, it's coated in shit.
Mm.
And so like the inside is pretty damn good, but the only way to get in there is through the shit, and the only way to get out is through the shit. But as long as you're on the inside, it's not so bad. And that place has always been that way in my mind. You've got a group of people inside, despite their foolishness and despite their misgivings, and you can name any one of them and find reasons why this or that. Despite all that, they're decent people who are trying to do a good job for the most part. But those that are setting the tone and are operating the business, despite any reality, are always going to set the tone based on their personality, and those personalities are not ever going to change.
And that's the thing. It's everything we do there is in spite of personalities, and it shouldn't. There's no team environment. I'm a big team guy. Play team sports growing up. I'm always, hey, everyone chip in, do your job, and we'll succeed together. And it's just, we attempt it, we try it. Sometimes it works, but most times it fails because everyone's so engulfed in their little fiefdom of, whatever department they're in.
Yeah.
And there's no grand team effort. And no matter how hard we try, because we've tried, and it's just not working. So and maybe, look, it could just be me just burning out. I mean, I might just be burned out. 20 years of the same place over and over again. Maybe someone else comes into it and is like, wow, this is the greatest place in the world. And different perspectives, different points of view, whatever. I could have just reached my limit. You know what I mean?
I do. You know the saying, the grass is always greener?
Right.
I've thought about that recently. I think I even mentioned it to you. I can't recall exactly, but the grass is always greener is a saying that I used to think meant that you could look at somebody else's grass and decide that it was greener, and then go over there and realize that there's a greener grass even further down. And so you could keep hopping from grass to grass to find the greenest grass. But I changed the way I think about that saying now. And what I realize is the grass is always greener means that when you look at grass from a distance, it looks greener. And you're looking at a lawn, edge on, it always looks greener than when you're on it looking down at it. And so it doesn't matter how green your grass is, the other grass will always look greener, even if it's not.
Right.
And so you got to remember that as part of this whole exercise, is that if you go somewhere new and fresh, you may find yourself in that mode of, oh, well, crap, it's not any different. Or maybe at first, oh, it's great. But realizing that a big part of moving to another company or another location is moving yourself internally. You said something to me before I moved to Colorado that I'm reminded of all the time. And it's annoying because you're right.
Wow.
Wherever you go, there you are. And I don't think that was you who came up with that. I think that you might have taken that from somebody, but it doesn't matter. It was you who said it to me.
I'm taking credit for it.
Yeah, it was you who said it to me at the right time, in the right context. And it's true, because I have looked back of my almost 10 years in Colorado, and I've thought, there's things that have gone really well and there's things that haven't gone really well. And sometimes I want to blame the things that haven't gone really well on something else, but I realize it's me because I'm still here. It's still me.
Right.
So you've got to be able to take your attitude and adjust it accordingly to the new scenario as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of where I've been at for the past few months. I've been walking that line of, is it me or is it the place?
Yes.
Or is it a combination of the two?
Yeah, it's a combination of the two.
I think it's a combination of the two. And right now in my own head, I'm just trying to reconcile how much is it the place and how much of it is it me?
Well,
because if it's me, then maybe it's something I have to change within myself, and maybe it'll make things better.
You gotta ask yourself why you keep the soy sauce in the fridge, and then decide whether or not that's a thing you want to keep on doing.
Well, look, the soy sauce is in the fridge because of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Right.
This place is recession proof, right? I have a job essentially here if I wanted it for life, unless I did something awful, went into the boss's office and pooped on his desk. And even that, I may still be able to not get fired.
Just make sure you film that whenever it happens, okay?
So yeah, it's like, I could work here for life, but do I want to?
Well, like anything, dude, there's a risk. You got to be able to weigh that risk, and your scenario is more complex than mine was at the time, and even now, more so probably. But part of my thought process was doing what I'm doing is a risk, and what I need to be able to do is identify the things that I can control and attempt to control them, or at least prepare for. And then understand that there are things that I cannot control, and accept accept the consequence that might come, and understand that if something terrible happens that creates a consequence for me that is substantially negative, that I will be able to handle that result and not be crushed by it. And so you got to be able to weed those things out. It took me probably 2 years of back and forth once I made my decision to be comfortable enough with it to make it happen. And so whatever it takes longer, shorter, depending upon who you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to weigh those risks. Now, here's what I tell you. When I moved, one of my number one primary things was I don't want to be in this industry anymore. It's a stupid industry. I hate everything about it. I don't like the people. I don't like the work, whatever. And the very first thing I did was cop out and go back into the industry because it was easy, honestly.
Right.
But what I learned through that is simply, and I said this a bunch of times, but simply by doing something different, I opened up opportunities that I never would have seen or known about or been exposed to. And for all intent and purposes, the place that I'm in now within the industry it's great. I can't complain. There's things about it that are not great, but those things are up to me to fix and change and make better. So it's become a good thing. And I never would have had it had I not taken that initial risk. Because I could have very easily, I could have stayed in New York and I could have stayed at that company that we're talking about and remained in that position. And you and I could be the same as we ever was. and nothing would have changed. The only reason I'm in a different place is because I went to a different place.
Fair enough.
You got to go to a different place to find a different place. How are you ever going to get to another place if you don't go to another place?
Exactly.
If you stay in the same place, you're in the same place as you were.
Always.
And if you go to another place, then that's when you're in a different place.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Well,
yeah, look, it's just been...
Well, all right, let me ask you some questions then.
Yes, go ahead.
What do you want? Like, let's say you could paint your picture. What do you want? It's doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to be easy. It's just what you want.
What do I want? If I had to paint my picture, what do I want?
Yeah. Paint your picture.
I'd want to work for myself.
Okay.
I'm tired of working for people.
Okay.
As far as what I'd like to do, I don't know. Something physical. I enjoy physical labor. As stupid as that sounds. And it could just be, like what, digging ditches? No.
I'd like to do something physical with you.
Yes, I bet. It's funny because one of the biggest, just I guess when you get to the middle age of life, you start to get retrospective on things. And one of the things I always think back on is I should have learned a trade. Carpentry, plumbing, something. Not plumbing. I don't want to deal with shit. I take that back. Carpentry would have been cool.
Yeah, but didn't you learn a trade, though? I mean, didn't we both learn a trade?
Yeah, I did. And then I got sucked into the corporate side of things, and I am now an analog man in a digital world.
Yeah, okay. Well, hold
on. I could go back and relearn the new stuff. It's not rocket science. I could probably pick it up fairly quickly. It's at the end of the day, it's not that much more different than what we did 10 years ago.
No, it's
technology's changed, but it's
it's a different connector and
it's an analog signal versus a digital signal, and blah blah blah. It's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more configuration involved that you have to deal with, but it's not rocket science.
No.
But yeah, but I've thought about that. I've thought about just saying fuck it and going back into the field. There's plenty of field jobs out there.
Yeah,
but do I want to do that?
No. Here's the thing.
Right.
We've talked about this a number of times, and I do the same thing. I look back. I'm like, oh, some of my most fond memories over the years were, wiring a house in the cold, or sitting behind a rack and listening to music and soldering RCAs for 4 hours straight, or whatever. And yeah, those in retrospect, those were good memories, but I don't believe that nostalgia should drive your forward movement.
Fair.
So what I'm saying though is if you had taken another path and you had done carpentry or whatever, that you would be in a similar position now because you got brains. And at some point or another, you would have found your way into a more managerial role where you were telling people what to do because you knew how to do it well and you were organized and capable. And at some time right around the age of 40-ish or so, you would start thinking about the time where you framed that house with your buddies, and it was cold, but it was fun. And, you threw shit at each other and had nail gun fights.
That would be fun.
Dangerous,
but fun.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be any different. I don't think than it is now. It's just a different set of circumstances. So don't let that guide your forward decision making.
Fair, but you could still do the managerial part and still be more hands-on.
Yeah, okay, that's true. I mean, it also depends on it depends on the kind of business too. Like we're straight away the company that you're working for now is large enough and complex enough that you really cannot do that effectively because you've got lots of other people to do that work for you and you've got to manage them all. If you had a smaller business where you could spend 3 days a week in an office telling people what to do and then 1 or 2 days a week doing a thing, that might be different because it's maybe 4 or 5 people. So yes, if you consider it that way, then yeah, there is a way to do that. Keep painting your picture for me. So okay, because here's a true fact. When I moved, I turned my life upside down, and I did so because I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted it to be. And my thought process was, this is what you're going to go and get. This is what you're going to go do. And it doesn't matter how you get there, and you might find stuff on the way that you didn't think about, but you're aiming for this. Okay? And I can tell you straight away that what I aimed for and what I got were different, but I'm not mad about it.
Fair.
So
I guess that's maybe that's part of where my issue lies, because I haven't painted the picture yet.
paint a picture. Like, and throw shit out there. Don't be afraid to just throw shit out there that sounds ridiculous too, because that's part of the deal. You gotta throw it to the wall, see what sticks, and then make sense of it.
I know what the end result I want, the end picture, but I don't know how to get what.
No.
I don't know the middle part.
Okay, fine.
That's the problem.
No, nobody knows the middle part. I didn't know the middle part. Nobody knows the middle part. But decide what the end point looks like. And then just
the end point looks like me coming home from whatever work I do, whatever it may be, and not being angry, annoyed, beaten down. What else? Tired all the time. Not physically tired, because physically tired, who cares?
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
you get over that. You rest. Fucking mentally and emotionally, just constantly just beaten, man. And that's a rut that I just can't get out of at this place. It's like every day. It's like I come home and just like, ugh. And I struggle to not put that out there so my kids see it. Right? Come home and I put my stuff down and I turn on the happy face because I don't want to affect them. But man, it's fucking taxing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm tired of most is that constant feeling. And if it, look, everybody's gonna have a bad day at work, right? No matter how good your job is, you could be whatever. I can't even think of a good analogy, but whatever. You could have the greatest job in the world, and you're gonna have a bad day when you're gonna come home and go, man, that was a shitty day.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That happens. That's work. That's life. Nobody has a perfect day every day of their life.
Right. So you need to.
But I'd like it to be like the exception, not the rule.
Right. You need to understand that there are things that will occur that you have the ability to control, and there are things that you cannot control. And part of that process is acceptance. I use this example all the time, and it's you can't get mad at the rain, so wear a raincoat. You hear it all the time. Yeah, it's rain. I can't believe it's raining outside. Oh, it sucks so bad. I hate it. It's the worst. Just go wear a raincoat, or you know what? Stay inside. But don't get mad at it. It's gonna rain. Can you stop the rain? I can't stop the rain. So you either wear the raincoat,
Was there a song like that? Who stopped?
Probably, yeah. There's probably a few of them, but it's true. Like it's one of those things where you have no control over it occurring, but you have control over the way that you react to it. And you can choose to be angry about it, which will get you nowhere. You can choose to avoid it, which will get you nowhere. Or you can choose to just accept it and move on, which, in my view, gets you through it. And
I have a problem with acceptance.
I know.
Because I accept it, but I don't like it.
You don't accept it. You don't accept it.
You're right. I don't accept it because it's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't accept stupidity.
But okay, but so back up for a second. Is the rain stupid?
Yeah, I'm backing up. Is the rain? No, the rain is
okay.
good.
The rain's not stupid. The rain is it's a fundamental thing of nature that occurs.
You need it. Grows food, grows grass, grows trees.
Totally. So are any complaints about rain warranted?
No, people just don't like getting wet.
No, and let's say you had this beautiful day planned outside. You had your whole it was a wedding. Everybody was dressed up. It was sunny, and everybody was super happy. And you didn't get a tent or umbrellas because it was going to be great. But then all of a sudden it rains, and everybody gets wet, and all the food's ruined, and everything sucks. Is it, in your view, is it still worth getting upset about that?
No, I'd be more upset that I didn't plan better. With all the technology that we have, I mean, you could have told the rain was coming.
So that's kind of the point, is that when you identify things that you are unable to control, and I don't mean you're unable to control them because you just haven't figured out how, but I mean because they're not controllable. Once you identify those things, you let them go. And it was kind of for me in New York, it was traffic. And
Yeah.
I remember the day vividly when it happened to me. I was on 36th Street, headed toward the Midtown Tunnel, and I had 1010 winds on at full volume, and I was smoking a cigarette out of each side of my mouth, and I was gripping the steering wheel as tight as I could, and I was tailgating and revving the engine, and I was just so damn stressed. And I kind of like just let go of the steering wheel, and I said to myself, holy crap, if you don't quit this soon, you're going to have a heart attack. And I kind of just realized, like, oh, there's nothing I can do about this. Like, I could not drive to Manhattan and back anymore. I mean, I guess that's the way I could avoid it. But, like, that's not going to happen today or tomorrow. So what am I going to do? Am I going to keep being angry, or am I going to figure out a way to chill? And so once I kind of came to that realization that I had no control over traffic, that my options were to relax and accept it, and then figure out a way to not be in traffic anymore. And it took me a while to figure out a way to not be in traffic anymore. And now traffic for me is elk in the road. I have to wait 5 minutes for him to finish.
Yeah.
And that's the way I looked at everything in front of me that was bothering me. Is, what am I going to do about this? Can I fix it right now? No, you can't. You're going to let it stress you out? Well, that's probably a bad idea. Well, what are you going to do about it long term? I don't know yet, but I don't want it anymore. So let's figure that part out second. But the first part is figure out how not to be an angry monster. I'll give you a little secret. I spent $37,000 of therapy helping me figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
That was
That's why I'm
part of
talking
it.
to you.
Yeah. Well, here you go.
There you
That's
go.
it. Yeah. And
You
I'm
become
free.
quite the rapist.
Forgot about that. Whew. Okay, so you get your picture, right? You're painting your picture. The first thing on your canvas is you want to come home from work and not be upset about work at all. You
Yeah.
want to be chill. You want to be relaxed. You want to be calm, whatever it is, right? Why do you want that?
Why do I want that?
Mm-hmm.
So I can be more present here, home. I find that I'm so, I don't know how it is with what you currently do now, but you remember how this place was,
Mm-hmm.
as far as it never really stops, and it's gotten worse over the years.
Yeah.
Right? Email, like, people, there's zero, there's no borders anymore between personal time and
Mm-hmm.
work time, because everyone's accessible. And then the higher up you go, and I guess that's the case for any industry you're in, right? If you're the CEO of a company, I guess you're always working to some extent.
That is true to some extent, yes.
But I'm not the CEO. Yes, I'm higher level management, but I'm not the CEO. I'm not whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I always feel like I'm engaged. I have to be engaged. I have to be on the lookout for a rogue email that's coming through that I need someone from my department to look up on. Oh, you make sure you cover this, because if you don't cover this, then this, and this. I'm always looking 20 steps ahead, because that's the way I've always been.
But that's your job, though.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not the problem.
But the problem is that when I should be here playing with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
or being focused on, hey, let me check out your homework, and let's go play a game, or let's go do this, my head is elsewhere. And that, I don't want to do that. I want to be here.
Is that the job's fault, or is that your fault?
It's a combination of the two. It is my fault, because I could actively say, fuck it, nope, done. But then I know that there's repercussions to that.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let me put it to you this way. What are the repercussions of you doing it the way you're doing it now?
It affects my personal life.
Right. So
Right.
So there's, for everything there's a consequence, and it does not matter. There's always a consequence. So if you, in your mind, the way I hear you is, if I ignore work, I face a consequence at work.
Right.
Without realizing, or not without realizing, but while sort of ignoring, or at least not doing anything about the consequences at home. And understanding that if you flipped it on its head, and all you did was concern yourself with home, and you didn't concern yourself with work at all, then it would be the reverse.
Yes and no, because my home time is really, look, I have a limited amount of time at home. I leave at 6 in the morning, 6:30, and I'm not home till 6 o'clock. So my time at home with the people is 6 to 9ish, because the kids go to bed around 9. So I really only have 3 hours, and in those 3 hours, I have to make dinner, get them, feed the kids, bathe the kids, do all the nighttime routines, blah blah blah, make them into human beings. So
Your children go to bed at 9. I go to bed at 7.
Oh.
That's just something I wanted to say.
Yes.
Okay. What would be, so here's where, I mean, in my mind, it's just question asking time. So what would be the result if at the exact time that you walked in through your front door, you did not engage in any way, shape, or form with anything at work? No emails, no text messages, no phone calls, nothing. What would happen to work?
It's something would get missed, something would go awry, and it's funny because most of the things that I'm dealing with after hours, and it's stupid because it's things that other people don't plan for, or it's other people's problems. That's sort of my job, is to deal with other people's problems and help resolve them, because
Are you done with OPP?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I'm tired of being down with it.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me stop you there, because the truth is that until you are operating in an environment where either you are the only one acting, or the people that you are acting with are all 100% on all the time, you are always going to deal with other people's problems. One of my coworkers' favorite sayings is, the only reason we have a job is because other people don't know how to do theirs. And he's sort of right.
Right.
Right? Because if everybody did everything perfectly all the time, we probably wouldn't have jobs the same way that we do. So, true. But what's the result if you don't do it? Imagine like the actual real life consequence.
The result is that the next morning is utter and absolute chaos.
Okay.
So I'm a chaos mitigator.
Okay. So consider then that you have a problem to solve.
Yeah.
And that problem is mitigating the chaos of the next day. And you have a choice. You can either deal with it when you get home in an effort to reduce that chaos the next day. And you could do that every day, as long as it takes, so that way the next day isn't quite so bad. The consequence of that is you really haven't fixed anything, because every day you've got to do it, and you're stuck in work mode at home when you should be in home mode.
Right.
On the flip side of it is, and I don't know what the answer is, but there is somewhere a solution. And let's just say quitting and leaving is not on the table for this argument. There's a solution that allows you to mitigate the chaos without you having to spend your home time at work. And I would argue that in order to find that solution, you have to first deal with the consequences of not spending your home time working. You first have to create that problem for you that you have been avoiding.
So I've tried that, right?
Okay.
I've tried to, and I think I've gotten fairly okay with it. I've made a conscious effort. Phone goes down when we eat dinner. Phone is away from the table. Whatever, we don't look at it. And I really don't. I guess it's more my problem than it is, I guess, the place, because I'll do is I'll keep the phone at a distance, but I'll check every 30 minutes, just check an email, see what comes through. And it's not necessarily that I'm acting on it right then and there, because most times I'm not, right? Because nothing's really going to get resolved at 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
But in my head, in my brain, I'm looking at it going, okay, I know I have to do this, 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 and this. And this, like, my brain is just constantly going and working, because I'm planning. I'm 20 steps ahead of myself. So I'm planning ahead so that whether I type the email that night and save it so that next morning I hit it as soon as I wake up and it goes out and the plan's in place and we start rolling, Or I know that when I get to the office, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D in order to solve this stupid problem that happened late last night, or whatever it is. In my head, it's my head. My head's constantly
How much time do you think you save by doing
twirling.
it that way versus doing it the next morning?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, try to put a guess on it. Like, is it 20% more efficient? Is it 80% more efficient? Is it not any more efficient at all? Like, because you gave me an example of like, if I could think about it, type up the email so that way I could just hit send in the morning and we could just get rolling with it. Ask yourself how long it takes you to write that email actually, and whether or not doing it in the morning was any better or worse than doing it the night before.
It's better for me.
Why?
Anyway. Because the morning I got to get up, get dressed, get out, and then I'm 40 minutes in the car. And those 40 minutes in the car, I'm fairly unproductive. So I'm not checking emails. I'm not doing anything in the car because I'm driving. I'm not ready to fucking kill myself typing emails and driving. I'm not that guy.
So you can actively say that doing it the night before is actually a time saver for the next day.
For the most part, yeah.
Okay. So
And plus, if I wait till the next day, if I wait till the time that I get into the office, by the time I get there to enact the plan, it's probably already too late.
who's sending you these emails that you need to act upon in the evenings?
It's everybody. It's owners. It's project managers. It runs the gamut.
Okay, so there is
It's different problems at different times and different. And it's not. Look, I'd be unfair to paint it as it's every day. It's this struggle. It's not. It's not every day.
No.
But it happens enough, and even on like days off, it's days off are no longer days off.
Can you see what I'm trying to do?
No, other than anger me.
I am attempting to narrow into the problems that you're describing to me and decide, or not really decide, but to illustrate for yourself whether or not they are actual things or not. And the reason why I'm doing that is for no other reason than because when you're trying to sort out shit,
Look,
you just hold on a second. When you're trying to sort something out, you don't just throw it all into a big pile and stare at it from a distance and then dive in, right? You have some kind of formula that you approach it with. You say, okay, well, here's what I need to know. I need to know what the shit is in the first place. So it's got to pass through my hands.
right?
So I've got to separate it into piles. Well, I could come up with a pile for everything, or I could just come up with 2 piles. Keep, don't know. And so you sort. And now you've isolated some of the stuff. And the keep stuff can just stay over there and you can ignore it. You can totally just not even pay attention to it, but then focus in on the I don't know pile. And then you do the same thing again. You go through the I don't know pile a second time, and then a third, and until eventually you've got like maybe 2 or 3 things that you can identify and you can go, oh yeah, okay, well that's really not that big a deal. And your problem gets solved through that methodology. And so it sounds to me like there is a general culture of after hours back and forth emailing, which I would argue is not productive for anybody. And the true method by which those things need to be tackled is during business hours, during the workday. And the only people that I can give a pass to during the workday are outside salespeople. And the only reason I can give a pass to them is because in theory, their workday needs to be in front of clients or on the phone. And in that moment, they are unable to email and organize and question because they're busy selling.
Mm.
And so the only people in the whole industry who should ever be emailing after hours are those people. But that's not the case. Everybody does it.
All right.
All right. So there's a trickle-down effect coming from those people, I bet. They're initiating it.
Well, you know what? It goes back to what we spoke about earlier, acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And how certain things aren't. You have to accept things for the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
So part of why I'm at where I'm at as far as being upset with this and trying to sort it out is I know that part of this industry, or maybe not this industry, of this place is never going to change. The expectations are
Right.
there. It's never going to be like, you know what, guys, we're not going to do after hour email anymore. Business hours are 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever, and then after 6 o'clock, no emails. Not going to happen. You're not expected to check your emails. No. The expectations are you check your emails.
Right.
So I have a choice to make. Do I accept that as part of the gig? Or do I say, well, okay, that's part of the gig. I don't like it. I
Yeah.
need to remove myself from the gig.
So I would argue that the way that I would approach it would be is to say that I don't want this. And identify that either I can, so I okay, let's just say I can't change it, right? It's a thing that I can't, it's call it the traffic.
Right.
So the first thing I need to do is I need to decide that I don't want this. And the second thing that I need to do is figure out a way to be with it. And then the
Right.
third thing I need to do is come up with a way not to have it anymore. And whether that means fixing it or leaving, I don't know. I haven't figured that part out yet. But in the interim,
So that's where I'm at. I'm at number 3 because I did number 1. I accepted that this is what it is and got to deal with it.
yeah, okay, well, hold on a
Number
second.
2, I came up with the method of I'll check it. I'll be on, but I won't. I'll be check it sparingly.
Yeah, but let me. This is important. Acceptance isn't just standing out in the rain and just getting soaked.
Right.
Acceptance is not getting upset when you get soaked, and realizing that it's not a problem. Like I can keep cutting wood or walking down the street in the rain. I'm not just going to sit there and be like, rain. What you've described to me is that your activity of emailing and checking and all that stuff is still impacting your home life, your personal life. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't even care. You'd just be fine. So part of that acceptance is legitimately being okay with it.
All right, then I haven't accepted it.
No, you haven't, and I know you haven't because I've been there. I'm trying to figure out a way to describe it to you better, but it's not something that I can tell you. It's something that you have to like get on your own, and it's.
Well, that's the thing. I think I do get it. I'm just trying to sort it out right now. I'm in the sorting mode. I'm trying to figure out what the next step is.
Do yourself a favor.
Drink heavily. I did that last night.
Sure. Yeah. Do yourself a favor though, and try not to worry too much about what the next step is until you're comfortable where you are. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. Like, well, if I was comfortable where I am, then what's the point of finding the next step? Because the picture that you painted still remains painted and on the wall, and you're still aiming for it. And the only thing you've done is realize that, like, hey, that's going to take me a while. It's going to take me a minute to get to that point. And it needs work. And in order to do that work, I need to be clear, and I need to be calm, and I need to be okay. And the way to get there is through figuring out how to be okay with where you are right now. I'll tell you something that I don't think I have ever really told anybody. I was the happiest in New York I have ever been the day before I left.
I bet.
And it's not because I was leaving. It's because I had spent the previous however long working out in my brain how to be okay with where I was. And I was doing more things in New York than I had ever done before. I was enjoying myself more in New York than I had ever done before. All of my complaints about, oh, there's no place to go hiking, or this, I don't want to do this, and the beach is stupid because of that, and all the reasons that I had built up in my head, dude, I was completely past it all. That hiking trail I used to hike out by Brookhaven Labs.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. I used to go there every weekend. Saturday and Sunday, I would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I would be at the trail by 5:30 in the morning, and I would go hike by myself for 3 hours, and I would come home, and I would have the best, most productive day afterwards.
Tick trail.
The tick trail. Well, every trail is out there is a tick trail, but yeah, tick trail. But so that's my point there is that I could look back on that and I can go, oh, why did I ever leave? It was the best time before I left. But that was part of me getting myself straightened out. So that way I could think clearly about what I wanted next. You got to embrace that shit. And it's not easy to do it first, but once you do it, you realize it's worth it.
Yeah, look, I'm trying to sort it out.
All right. What else is on your picture that you're painting?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I got the end picture.
No, but
if it was a comic strip, I have the panes, right?
Yeah.
I know the last pane. It's me coming home, happy, trying to figure out the other.
No, I get
the other three.
The road to getting there requires more effort, but like that last pane is only one thing. It's only one color.
Right.
You don't have like anything else that you want to put on that end picture?
No.
Okay.
As far as what? Like,
as far as whatever. It doesn't just have to be about work. It's whatever you can think of. That's the beauty of it. Remember I said throw it against the wall, see if it sticks, and then sort it out later. It doesn't matter if it's ridiculous or not. And you don't even have to tell me if you don't want to or if you haven't thought about it.
I don't know what it is. I honestly haven't thought about it. My end picture is being more present here at home. And home doesn't have to be physically this building. It could be anywhere.
Sure.
It could be a home in Massachusetts. It could be a home in
Sure.
Nevada, whatever. It's just being home and being present at home versus not.
Yeah. Okay.
And how to get there, I don't know yet. Trying to figure that out.
Fair.
And that's where I'm at.
What are the things that you would keep doing if you got to that end picture?
What do you mean?
Like you know that some things are going to have to change in order to get there, right? But what about yourself would you keep exactly the same way that it is now once you got there?
I don't know. I mean, I'm always a planner. That's never going to change. I don't think I'll ever change that.
Okay.
I'll always be looking ahead for the most part. Maybe I'd like to not look as far ahead because I think that sometimes clouds the short-term judgment because you're looking 20 steps ahead when you really should only be looking like 5 steps ahead.
I would argue sometimes you only need to be looking 1 step ahead.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm trying to small chunks.
Well, but I mean, I think that's a good point. I think you and I share that sort of thing. And something that I have found advantageous is the saying, can you fix it right now? Like right now. Like if you were to stop everything that you were doing right this second and focus entirely on this problem, could you fix it? And if the answer is no, then I throw it away until it's time.
Yeah, it's funny because Barbara and I have very different outlooks on things like that. Like money-wise, for example. Like I'm always of the mind, save it. Save it for a rainy day. Save it for 20 steps ahead because you don't know what's going to happen. Where she's of the mind of, well, you could be dead in 20 steps ahead and you would have deprived yourself of something fun here versus saving for 20 steps ahead. Now, look, I don't want to paint her as some haphazard spender where she's out there just spending money on frivolous things. She's maybe in her younger days, but she's gotten so much better, and she's, if she wants something, she'll go buy it, right? Within reason. She's not going to go buy, a $10,000 purse. But if she wants something, she needs a new pair of shoes, she'll go buy a new pair of shoes. I will wear the same pair of shoes until those things disintegrate. Because I'll look at it and go, well, I don't want to spend $80 on a new pair of shoes. These shoes are fine. They'll be all right.
Yeah.
I can make it work.
That's fine.
That's fine. Save the money. I may need that $80 in 2 weeks because the screen door may blow off in the wind or, a bird may fly into a window and I got to replace it. Silly.
You're both right, though. And you're both wrong. There's a balance.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I've had the same pair of, the pair of pants. I wear ripped jeans. I've been wearing ripped jeans my entire life. Not because I like them, but because why am I buying new jeans? These jeans still cover my genitalia, and that's what pants are for.
Stupid pants.
And society is not okay with me walking around with my genitalia out, so I still must wear pants, and therefore, I'm saving money. I'm not buying pants. And that's fine. Like, that's not a big deal. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like it's not a life altering decision. It doesn't matter. It's no big deal. But the concept of denying yourself something now for something that you don't know is a fallacy. And I'm all for being prepared. Like, there are certain things about life, you save some money, you save some food, you make sure that you're in a position where if something goes wrong, that you're not immediately ruined by it, etc. Those are reasonable things to do. But to continuously deny yourself even just the thought of a moment of joy for the sake of something that you don't even know or understand or does not exist or may never even come, just because you thought it, that's not the good one. That's the one that's going to hurt you. And it's not going to hurt you like financially, like you'll probably be fine, but it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you in the moment. And the thing that you keep saying to me is that you want to be more present at home. And I can tell you straight away that it does not matter what your job is, and it doesn't matter what you do every day. Your presence at home is dictated by how you think about the moment. And that's true across everything that you do. It's not just at home. So reel yourself in a little bit with your 20 steps ahead. One of the examples I can give you about that is mountain biking. Like a lot of sports of that type, mountain biking is one of those things where if you are not looking directly ahead of you, you're going to die. If you look off too far into the distance, you're going to die. You need to focus directly ahead. And so when I use this line all the time, there's a rectangle that lives directly in front of your front tire when you're going downhill mountain biking.
Right.
And if your eyes are not squarely planted on that patch of dirt, you're screwed. You don't have the capacity to think about other stuff. You're not allowed to because it's over. And it's actually a very beneficial exercise, funny enough, to keep yourself out of that future thinking. It helps you be in the moment because you have to be. Otherwise, you're going to get seriously injured. There are some pretty gnarly ways to hurt yourself mountain biking down a hill.
Yeah.
So stuff like that is really, really helpful. Doesn't have to be mountain biking. It can be whatever you want. But something that requires you to focus in front of you.
Yeah, I haven't figured that out yet.
Well, that's throwing stuff up against the wall too. You got to see. But is a thing I ask myself quite often. And I'm in a fairly advantageous position career-wise. And I have this sort of back and forth with myself on a regular basis. And I wonder whether or not I need to live and breathe my work sometimes. And I think about it from the perspective of those super successful entrepreneurs and or super wealthy CEOs or whatever, where they've sacrificed everything in their lives just to focus in on work. And every minute of every day they think about their work. And I wonder what that's all about. And I'm closer now than I've ever been to thinking about it in a reasonable way, because what I do for work now aligns more with the way I think anyway.
Right.
That I don't need to separate it too much. But at the same time, I wonder if I should. What length do I keep it away? Do I let it encroach on every moment of my thinking? I don't know, maybe. Or maybe not, I don't know. But that's only because I've come to this point where, they're starting to match up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's, I mean, that's a good thing though, because now that means that you're actually, I don't want to say you're passionate about what you do, but you seem to enjoy what you do. So maybe at that point, because you enjoy what you do so much, it's not necessarily an encroachment on your personal life. It becomes part of it,
Yeah, I think so.
right?
But I also think that there's again, it's the acceptance thing. It's the deciding that I have found joy in what I do for two reasons. Let's call it reason number one. I have found the things about what I've done over the years. I have found the things that I enjoy. There are parts of it that I enjoy, and there are parts of it that I don't. And then, yeah, the subject matter and the methodology is different now than it used to be. And so, yes, that I enjoy more than I used to. But like, I've always enjoyed problem solving. I like to troubleshoot. It's one of my favorite things to do. It fulfills me more than anything else I do. Somebody throws a pile of junk at me and says, "Here you go, figure it out." I'm like, "Oh, cool, all right." And I come up with a system and I figure it out and whatever. And I enjoy that. So I use those things I have found the joy in, and I try to apply them to what I do. And you can do that. Those are things you can do. And it's helpful. And I don't think it matters what industry you're in or what it is that you do day to day, that there's some things that, unless you're just shoveling shit every day, but then again, you might like the exercise. So,
Yeah, look, I have to imagine that the people that you mentioned, the entrepreneurs, the people who, give their entire lives to what they do 24/7. I cannot imagine that they don't enjoy it. You'd have to be insane to commit your life 24/7 to something and not actually enjoy what you do, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
I'm trying to think of a person. I don't know. I can't think of a.
Elon Musk.
There you go. Perfect example. He has to like what he does. I mean, and it's pretty cool, right? What he does. I mean,
It's pretty cool.
I'm sure it's super stressful. I'm sure it's fucking insane. But he has to really. And look, he's reaping the benefits out of it. He's super wealthy, super successful, and blah 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 blah. But I can't imagine that he would be all those things if he didn't enjoy what he was doing.
I would suspect that Elon Musk and people like him are really bad at day-to-day details.
Yes.
And they're probably really good at lofty goals. And what they know how to do is imagine a lofty goal and then just run for it full speed ahead. And on their way, shit's going to break. And on their way, things aren't going to go well. But on their way, oftentimes, they reach their goal and people come along with them and they learn things, etc. Now, everybody's going to be different. I'm not Elon Musk by any stretch of the imagination. But I have to imagine that if you're not running toward a goal at full speed, then all you're doing is treading water. And when you're treading water, it's boring and you get tired. And here's the thing, time runs the same. It doesn't matter. You're gonna succumb to the same consequences of time as the dude running toward the goal. The only difference is that you will have remained treading water and he will have remained running toward a goal.
Right.
Remember, I used to give the example of being stuck in a rut before I left New York. And you walk that rut long enough and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually you can no longer see over the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes harder to even see that there's something outside the rut because you're so deep into the thing. Well, somewhere in that trench that you've dug yourself, there's a ladder. Find the ladder, peek your head up over the sides, and get the fuck out. And just go perpendicular to that trench. And what you might find is that you may run off a cliff. And that would suck. Mm-hmm. But what's more likely is that you will run out for a little bit perpendicular to that trench, and you will turn a little bit more parallel to that trench little by little and you will find a new pathway that is no longer in a trench. And what I have to remind myself of, actually, is remind yourself that each time you walk a path, you dig yourself a trench. And if you walk it for too long, the trench will get too deep. And you have to remind yourself to take a step off that path every once in a while and take a different path. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be drastic. Just try not to walk that same path too often for too long.
Yeah. It's been a 20-year path.
Yeah, it's a deep rut, man.
It's a tremendous rut.
But you've learned a ton of shit in that rut.
I have. But yeah, I have.
Yeah.
But the rut's only getting deeper.
Oh yeah. No, you're not
There's no
you're not filling that rut in.
I've always, we always just talk about the potential. I'm digging myself a deeper rut to reach a potential that I don't think will ever be reached or is attainable in the time that I want it to be attainable. How's that?
Time.
Because maybe it's attainable in 15 years. But in 15 years, I don't want to put another 15 years into this.
Right.
I hate to sound selfish and childish. I want instant gratification at this point. And I don't see the gratification that I want possible. I've tried to give it the benefit of the doubt. Yes, this year has sucked with COVID and all that stuff. And even this year has been like a perfect microcosm because we did things really well at the beginning of this. I mean, really well. The way it was handled, the way we deployed things and policies we put in place for protection. I mean, I'd like to say we did a really fucking phenomenal job with that. And now we've gotten back into our rut.
Same old song and dance.
Same old song and dance.
Sweet
and it's like
complacency.
Yeah, and it's like, well, no, and it's not, and the things that we could change to do things differently or to do things what I perceive to be correctly are minor things, really minor things. But it's things that would make certain people slightly uncomfortable, and they don't want to do it. So they don't, right? And then what ends up happening is the workforce itself becomes fucking downtrodden and poor morale, and everyone's pissed off, and it's a negative, angry place. And that negative energy is never directed to the people it should be directed to because they're at a level where they shouldn't, it's directed to the middle managers, which is where I fall into. And I've gotten to the point where I'm just tired of making excuses for stupid decisions.
There is nothing more comfortable than familiarity, no matter how detrimental it is.
Yeah, but it's familiarity for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. But it's comfortable.
But it's stupid.
Yes.
It's dumb. And not only is it dumb.
The warm blanket of ignorance.
But it's dangerous, especially in the situation that we're in. It's dangerous. Yeah. It's not even that it's a smart bit. It's like, it's just a dangerous decision. I'll give you an example. The idea of not allowing people to work remotely and to flood your office with humanity and look, our New York's numbers are nowhere near as insane as the rest of the country. Thank God. Yeah. But there's still an uptick, and there's still a reasonable risk that doesn't need to be taken, because I'd say 85% of the people who work physically in the building can do their work from home and do it well. And it was proven. It's not even like this is a test, because we proved it. Yeah. We did it for almost 2.5 months, and there was really no falter. There was no evidence of, oh, that person is not really working, even though they say they're working from home, because everybody did their job. Things got accomplished. Things got done. The people who needed to be physically in the building were in the building, because there's certain people you need there.
Right. Can't move a box remotely.
Right. But there's other people, there's no reason to be there. Purchasing can be done from home. Drawing CAD can be done from home. Engineering can be done from home. Hell, even service can be done from home. All you need is a phone call and a computer.
I would jump to a
But
really specific thing, actually, within that, is keep in
Yeah.
mind for yourself
uh
that, at least out here anyway, business is booming. And people are moving companies as they please because work is at a high point, and if they don't like where they're at, they're leaving. And consider that for the people that are being forced to come to an office and work in lesser conditions, where they may find another job working from home in better conditions. That's a thing to keep in mind, because you don't want that to happen either.
You don't, but it's weird, man, because you know this place. It's created this weird cocoon of ignorance, this cocoon of comfort, because as much as people will complain, and I'm guilty of it too, no one makes the decision to go. It's easier just to sit and complain.
Familiarity is comfortable.
Familiarity, right? It's comfortable. It's people are nervous making a move, and with what's going on, and all the unemployment. It's it's daunting, but at the same time, like, to me, it's just all it takes is for one person to come into that office and to be sick, right? Or even if they're not sick, they're asymptomatic, but it turns out that they're sick, and now another person gets it, and now you got to shut down the entire. And that was always the impetus for the changes we made early on. It was like, hey, we got to keep anyone in the building. We got to keep it to small numbers, because at least with small numbers, God forbid someone is sick, at least we've isolated it to 6 people, and those 6 people go home. The rest of the business can still run. No harm, no foul.
Right.
We're good to go. Now the way we're operating, it's like, oh man, somebody gets sick, I don't know how the fuck you're gonna have a business, because
Yeah, I mean, nothing's changed to that degree. It's still the same principle.
Right. The only thing that's changed is that it's the mentality. It's like, well, I want people here. I don't know if they're working. They are, though, because we proved it. This isn't a test. We proved that it worked. The test was 7 months ago, and we passed it. We actually passed the test with flying colors, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we got a D-. I'd say we passed the test with an A+.
I have been more productive working from home than I ever imagined I could be, and that I ever imagined that I would, to the point where not only have I done more work, but I've also spent less time working. And I feel like anybody who argues against that is fundamentally misunderstanding what it means to do a good job.
Yes.
And that in and of itself is a danger. Because
It's a cultural thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a very old school mentality, but it's also detrimental to the people.
But it's always been a cultural thing. At least in this place, it's always been a cultural thing. Even before, I think back to the days of, even back when you were still here, and I don't want to name names. The previous owner before he left was still around. I always remembered he would always make a comment about people who left at 5:00. He always made it a point. He clocks in at 8 and he leaves at 5 every day, on the clock, on the dot. And I always thought to myself, well, yeah, that's their job. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, what's the, in my head, it was always, it was always painted as a negative thing. Well, you only worked 8 to 5, and you always left promptly at 5, and you were frowned upon for it. And I was like, well, that's such a weird thing, because that's the job. Like, when you're hired, you're told you work 8 to 5.
Right. That's a very New York. That's a very New York thing, by the way.
It shouldn't be a negative thing that someone is leaving, and it still persists today. It's like, I'll still hear, well, that person's always out the door at exactly 5:00. Well, yeah, as long as his work is done, good for him. He should be out the door at 5:00. He or she has a family they got to go to. They want to go home. They want to do things. Why should they not leave at 5:00?
Did they get their work done?
Exactly.
Did they leave anything
if they got
behind?
their work,
Have they fucked
if
up?
they got their work done by 4:00, go home at 4:00. I don't give a shit. If all your stuff is done, I have zero issue with you leaving, when you're done.
It's a very New York mentality. It really is. And it's surprising. Because so even when I was in New York, when I was a tech and I was running jobs, people wanted to take lunch. You can remember. I'm sure you can remember you and I working together. We worked really well together. I want lunch. Go eat. Let's just finish.
Right.
What are you doing taking lunch? And when I moved to Colorado, my very first inclination was that I couldn't work as fast as I did in New York, because if I did, I would be done so early compared to everybody else around me, that like it would be nonsense. Like they'd still be putting along, twiddling their thumbs, and I'd already be done 10 times over and finished some of their work. And so I started giving this kind of like one-liner, like I'm moving at half speed and I'm still passing all of you. Now, to some degree I like it, to some degree I don't. But I completely agree with you that mentality, that cultural, if you're here later than 5, somehow you're winning. I look at it differently now. I look at it as, if you're still here at 5, what have you been doing all day?
Right. Either you've not done your job for the day, or something's gone terribly
Something's gone
wrong that
wrong.
requires you to stay late.
Yeah.
Right.
Why are
and that's
you-
the way I always look at it too. It's like, look, my goal when I come in the morning, whether I'm working in the office or in the field, is I want to be out by 5. That's the time. I want to be out earlier,
Yeah.
but I want to be I want to be done by 5. And if I'm not, then that means that either I've done something wrong during the course of the day,
Or somebody else
or
has,
I've gotten so derailed and so many other things have gone terribly wrong that it requires me to stay late.
Yeah. That's exactly the way I think. It's ridiculous.
And I look and I think about it the same way with the people who work below me. Like I manage a substantial amount of people, from in-house to the field. Like there's a significant amount of people who are under my umbrella. And the constant struggle I have is justifying them working less. Not working less, but you know what I mean. Not
more efficiently.
more efficiently,
yeah.
right? It's well, why does this person leave at this time? Because they're done for the day.
Because they're done. I think that's probably the best answer you can get, because they're done, because they finished, because they worked faster and better than you did. Why are you still here?
But the answer is always, well, couldn't they have done more? Couldn't they have stayed later and worked more? But no, why?
Sure they could have.
If there was a reason to, if there was a deadline that we needed to meet, that whatever reason we were behind and needed to work late, then yeah, sure, I would have asked them to work late. But if they got
that mentality, by the way, that thing that you said, couldn't they have stayed and done more? You have to remember too that that's coming from a salesman.
Yeah.
And as much as we want to remind ourselves that he is a knucklehead, he is a successful salesman. And you don't become a successful salesman without some hustle. And the truth of that job, when you do it in that way and in that environment, is, yeah, you could always do more, because the moment you stop, there's the clock still runs and you are missing out on opportunity or potential. And so,
Right.
yes, in that mode of thinking, yeah, that's how that works. And so the other way to respond to something like that is no, they couldn't have stayed and done any more, because you didn't generate more business for them to do. Because your job is to generate the business to keep them here later. And if they're done at 4, that means you didn't finish.
Right.
So you need to work harder so that they have more work to do. Punk.
Yeah, that wouldn't wouldn't register.
Fucking
That
say
wouldn't
it.
compute.
No, probably not. But say it, because it'll make you feel good.
There's a lot of things I want to say that would make me feel good.
Yeah.
It ultimately cause me to lose my job.
You could shit on his desk, you wouldn't lose your job.
Nah.
You could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'd still vote for you, Alex.
What about that?
Thanks for joining us on today's podcast.
Put the meat in a pie and just shut up.